I'll start this off by saying this. Everything on this show that involved Roman in some way or another, I liked. His opening promo was okay, as his promos typically are. He's nothing if not serviceable when it comes to his mic work these days. His show long storyline involving the returning Jimmy Uso was attention grabbing. The match that Seth Rollins and Cesaro had that had to do with whether or not Cesaro would even get a shot at the Universal Championship at WrestleMania Backlash was good. And Sami Zayn's backstage segment with Teddy Long was entertaining, I guess. Really, with the Roman stuff in particular, I didn't need for anything else on the show to bring it like they did. Things like Bayley and Bianca Belair pretty much just existing on this episode was just fine. But man, there was a lot not to like on this episode. An episode of SmackDown that I wouldn't even be covering if not for the big throwback edition that they advertised a week ago. Seemingly out of nowhere, I might add. Which might have just been a thing that Fox wanted them to do, honestly. I'm not too sure at this point. I wasn't expecting a complete old school makeover like they used to do almost a decade ago on Raw. They are stuck in the Thunderdome after all. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee wearing some really dated looking outfits and advertising the matches with some old school match graphics were all the expectations that I had for whatever this was going to be in the first place. WWE doesn't often put forth the effort to go the extra mile to make occasions like this really mean something. At least not these days. See Raw 25 is a pretty good example of that. Even back when they did the old school episodes of Raw back in 2010 and 2013, the matches were typically underwhelming and the old school returns weren't all that special. I mean, it was cool and all to see the referees on the show wearing old school Blue SmackDown referee shirts and all, but when the matches underwhelm or just flat out suck, like Dolph Ziggler versus Dominic Mysterio, you're not really willing the nostalgia out of me with the current day dog shit in an early 2000s skin. And to delve in Dolph versus Dominic a little more, the match that they had is what really killed the show before it even had a chance to pick up a little more. I was looking forward to the advertised match of Dolph versus Ray before they had Dominic get in the way of it and switch up the card to push his crappy, uninteresting, and unworthily nepotistic storyline. Honestly, I don't think that I would have minded as much if it were his sister Aaliyah in his spot instead, and some mixed tag team feud with Buddy Murphy or something. At least their storyline from last year was fucking interesting. Give me the classic WWE novella type of storytelling over this crap with Ray and Dominic on SmackDown every week. Or at the very least, don't have Dominic get in the fucking way of Rey Mysterio's wrestling when he's nowhere close to Rey's level yet. The tag matches that they were in every week was at least better than this card subject to change bullcrap. But anyways, I can't sit here and say that they were the only show killers this week. Reginald was put in yet another match with a woman where he spent the entire match flipping around the ring and dodging his opponent like that's supposed to be impressive. Even though no matter where you look in today's age in pro wrestling, every company has at least a dozen guys doing flips and dives like it's going out of style. And what do you know, the match ends in an interference DQ after what, like 3 minutes of bullshit? How original. And then we have the main event 10-man tag match that apparently two half-assed Survivor Series-esque heel and babyface backstage promos is supposed to justify the entire throwback show. It ended with a King Corbin win over Shinsuke Nakamura. Why? Because who the fuck cares, I guess. Anybody remember that this match even happened? No. Was it a complete waste of time? In the end, I thought so. Unless maybe if you're just the biggest King Corbin fan of all time, then you might have appreciated the bland and uninteresting climax of the chaos that ensued right before the match closed. Hell, maybe you enjoyed this show from top to bottom as well. Congratulations on being able to enjoy this shit, because I didn't. Ruby Riott and Carmella had a match. Am I missing anything else? Look, I had my hopes up at least a little bit considering how decent SmackDown is on some weeks. Their tag matches, surprisingly enough, can be pretty fun. Roman is a force on the show every week and is really your only good excuse to tune into the show at this point. And when their women's division is getting longer than 3 minutes in the ring every week, it isn't all that bad. Hell, I can't even bring myself to say that I hated this show or that I was let down by it. It's just that for every episode of SmackDown that was enjoyable enough, there's an episode of complete trash that follows. Really, it is what it is at this point, and this week was just more garbage.